Inconsistent players in your redraft leagues are always a vibe killer. You put them in your lineup, they give you a dud. You sit them on their bench, they absolutely explode. But in best ball leagues, that doesn't even matter, because when one of these guys throws up a miracle in any given week, they're going in your lineup no matter what. Today's video, we're looking at 4 guys that could give you those miracle weeks in best ball leagues that could absolutely help you take home the trophy. So while some of these guys you might be skipping in redraft leagues because you just can't trust them, in best ball leagues, given their current ADP, it doesn't matter, because when they give you that big week, they're going to be in your lineup. And if you want to draft one of these players in a league against me, make sure you go down to the description of this video, use code word headliners, and sign up for your Underdog account right now. When using code headliners and depositing at least $10, Underdog's going to match that deposit up to $100, and you're going to get a free fantasy football draft guide from us this year. On top of that, if you're one of the first 1,000 people to sign up this offseason, then you're going to be entered into a contest to win a free piece of memorabilia from Jake's office. So when this video is over, go down to the description, head over to Underdog, and create that account using headliners. My first guy up is going to be Brandon Aiyuk, who is currently the wide receiver 32 in best ball drafts and going 62nd overall. Last season, he was hit or miss. There was 4 weeks where he gave you wide receiver 1 numbers, and there was another 2 weeks where he gave you wide receiver 2 numbers. During his wide receiver 1 weeks, he scored just over 78 fantasy points, which was 41% of his total points for the season. In his wide receiver 2 weeks, he gave you 24 points, or just over 12% of his season total. So for the entire season, Brandon Aiyuk only gave you 6 weeks where he gave you true fantasy viable starting numbers. Over the course of those 6 weeks, he scored 103 fantasy points, or 54% of his total season points. When you've got a team with Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Christian McCaffrey, some of those big weeks are going to be hard to come by, but they are going to pop up because of his deep threat ability. So when teams start to creep close to the line to try and contain Kittle or McCaffrey or Deebo, that's when whoever starts at quarterback is going to hit Aiyuk deep for a big play. And when he gives you those big weeks, he'll definitely find his way into your best ball lineup. Tyler Lockett is the ultimate best ball player, and it's crazy to see that his current ADP puts him as the wide receiver 33 at 66 overall on the season, which is actually being drafted behind rookie Jackson Smith-Njigba, who they just drafted. Last season, Tyler Lockett was actually a little bit more steady than what we've seen in years past. He gave you 3 wide receiver 1 weeks, but he gave you 5 wide receiver 2 weeks. So during his wide receiver 1 weeks, he scored just over 63 fantasy points, or 32% of his season total. And in those wide receiver 2 weeks, he scored just over 70 points for 35% of his season total. So he combined for 8 weeks of wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 output. And his 133 points were 68% of his total season points. And as I just mentioned, they did bring in Jackson Smith-Njigba, which is going to hurt some potential volume. But when you've got a guy like JSN that works over the middle of the field out of the slot so well, you've got a guy like DK Metcalf that commands the respect of the defense, Tyler Lockett is still going to find himself open some weeks for some huge games. So while in redraft leagues, Tyler Lockett might be a little inconsistent and a headache to start most weeks, in best ball leagues, this is a guy that you absolutely need to be drafting. Let's talk about a running back, Jerick McKinnon from the Kansas City Chiefs. Right now, he's the running back 43, 129 overall off the board. But considering how crazy the end of his 2020 season was, and that the Kansas City Chiefs still have a lot of inconsistent options at wide receiver, I'm surprised he's not going higher. He put together 7 total RB1 and RB2 weeks combined in 2022. All but one of those weeks came over the course of the final 6 weeks of the season. So during his RB1 weeks, he scored 47% of his total season points. And during his RB2 weeks, he scored 23% of his total points for the season. So over the course of those 7 weeks, Jerick McKinnon scored 119 fantasy points, giving you 71% of his total season points. And outside of Travis Kelce, they don't have established receiving options. Who knows what we're going to get from Kadarius Toney this season? They spent some draft capital on Rashee Rice. You've got Sky Moore, but none of that adds up to killer wide receiver cores like we've seen in the past with Kansas City. And Patrick Mahomes was looking towards Jerick McKinnon a lot at the end of the season. I'd be willing to bet some of that carries over to 2023. And as RB43 off the board, you better believe I'm investing in him to be like my RB5 or 6, and when he does have those big receiving games, he's winning me that week. A guy that nobody is going to be interested in redraft leagues, you should still keep on your radar for best ball leagues. Gabe Davis is going as the wide receiver 40, 80th overall right now on Underdog. And he didn't have very many spectacular games. Only 3 wide receiver 1 weeks and 1 wide receiver 2 weeks last season. So during those 3 weeks when he was a wide receiver 1, he gave you 44% of his season total. And that 1 week where he was a wide receiver 2, he gave you 10%. So that right there tells you how bad Gabe Davis was at times last season. We got some good, we got a whole lot of ugly though. So over the course of those 4 weeks, he gave you 80 fantasy points, 54% of his season total. That's right, Gabe Davis. 54% of his season total in only 4 weeks. Now, I can completely understand why you're saying, Kyle, I'm not going near Gabe Davis in my redraft league. But redraft and best ball are completely different thought process. Gabe Davis on your bench is like a wide receiver 4 or 5 is absolutely perfect because, again, if he does have inconsistencies in an offense where you have Stephon Diggs, where you've drafted Dalton Kincaid, Gabe Davis is that outside wide receiver 2 still, could see some weeks where he just doesn't get the targets you want. But you have to keep in mind, at the beginning of last season, Gabe Davis actually went down with an injury that took him a few weeks until he was back to 100%. And then when he finally did get there, Josh Allen had his elbow sprain, which you could see it at times greatly hampered Josh Allen going down the field for a few weeks, and his accuracy just was not the same. So now that both guys are 100%, what will we get from Gabe Davis? Probably still some inconsistencies given the weapons around him, but I like his potential for some big blow-up weeks still, and those big blow-up weeks are going to help you win your best ball league. Headliner Nation, if you like the video, hit the like button. If you dislike it, then hit the dislike button. But no matter who you are, hit the comments down below before you leave and let me know one of your best ball targets for this season. And of course, if you're new here, you gotta subscribe. Check out what we're gonna do the rest of the offseason and for the 2023 season, because baby, it's gonna be big. Peace out, stay safe and healthy, Headliner Nation. I'll see y'all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.